Thanks so much for joining us today. Excuse me, I'm Katie Portman, VP Director of Out of Home at Horizon Media. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Travis Sterner, Director of Media at United Artists Releasing. We will be talking about out of home strategy, changes in consumer behavior resulting from the current pandemic, and the impact on future planning, all from an entertainment perspective. So Travis, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with some quick questions just to get us warmed up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first, jeans or sweats?
Oh, I mean, jeans, but not in the current in the current world. I've been wearing sweats every day.
Yes, good answer. Cat or dog?
Dog.
Coke or Pepsi?
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. Netflix or Hulu?
Ooh, that's hard. Both, but I guess Netflix.
Hot coffee or iced coffee?
Iced coffee.
Beer or wine? Or other? Or all? These days.
All of the above, mostly wine.
Zoom, Google Hangouts, or Teams?
Zoom, mostly.
Night owl or early bird?
Early bird.
Savory or sweet?
Savory.
And then are you a Kindle person or an old-fashioned printed book type of person?
I just recently purchased a Kindle, but I do like an old-fashioned book.
It's hard to go back once you get used to the Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you for humoring me.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can jump in. So first, can you tell us a little bit more about your role at United Artists Releasing and what you do there?
Of course. So at United Artists, we are the main marketing and distribution arm of MGM Films and Annapurna Pictures as well, and then any third-party pictures that we pick up. So we're basically like a almost like independent distributor and marketer for film, but primarily MGM properties. But so within the marketing department that I work in, my department specifically focuses on media strategy, so paid media strategy that across all mediums, so television, radio, out of home, and digital. And we work very closely with all the other departments you would imagine, with research, with creative, and with publicity and digital and all the other arms to craft our full comprehensive marketing plans for each film and each release.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us a little bit about the role that out of home plays in your communication strategy and how that might vary by title or genre?
Of course. So as you can probably imagine, from most like theatrical films and movie marketing campaigns, we have a very, if you think about it in a very simplified way, a simplified strategy would basically be we're launching a new product, for 4 to 5 weeks. We have a very short window to launch a new product into the world. If you take out the trailer launch, which happens, much earlier, that gives a little bit of awareness, and then all the publicity we're doing as well boosts it. But for the purposes of our media strategy, we're essentially launching these new products that are totally different and a lot of times new IP into the market. So we need to create a lot of awareness and a lot of and just capture a ton of eyeballs and buzz and excitement in a short amount of time. So for us, obviously for every plan, we mixed all mediums in a different way, depending on the targets, if it's older and younger. With out of home specifically, we typically will always do sort of a mix of profile and frequency, because we obviously, we live in Los Angeles out here, and there's a lot of high profile out of home units. And, the whole, even in the past, I would say 3 years, the whole out of home market here has shifted with Netflix kind of dominating a lot of the space, not only just buying it, as units, but also just buying the actual productions themselves. So that kind of shifted the market. I think it really drove up a lot of the demand for out of home, and just the sexiness of it all really was highlighted, and the large formats are really just very impactful in the city, especially and then you think about the way that media is consumed has shifted, where like there's a lot of distraction online. There's a lot of distraction on other platforms. So we like out of home is a really nice, clear way to kind of just get a physical message out there in the world that's unavoidable. But yeah, so for us, every movie is different. But you can imagine the tent poles like Bond, like No Time to Die, that we are working on and have shifted back to November. That is a big event film that we want to target, all quadrants and all people. So we definitely prioritize big, high-profile units, as well as making sure that we're covering off on the frequency to make sure we're just getting that repetition in, and that all across our entire campaign. And then that leads into our outer market strategy. So that depends on each film. If we have specific demos of females and certain demographics that we're targeting, we look at different markets. We look at different, if we have a strong, we feel our research department has given us data that shows that a movie will have a really strong Hispanic audience, and that plays into what markets we look at. And then not even just markets, we look at specific formats that are best for each market. And that's what we work really closely with your team at Horizon, who's great, who's just incredibly knowledgeable of each market, and so we lean on them a lot to discuss, different markets, like say Dallas versus an Atlanta versus a Chicago, of what the best format is. Like even if, for us, we never really just blanket the country with just one format. We always get into the weeds and understand what is the best, not only just for the consumer and for what our creative strategy, but we just want to understand what the behavioral patterns of a market, just to see like if there's one that's really high in freeway traffic, like in Texas, there's a lot of cars on the road and a lot of people driving on the freeways. So we always kind of lean into that, depending on that, on the strategy there. But so yeah, it just varies. It's I would say that it's a very important part of our media strategy, and it definitely changes with each film. And I think one of the fun things about it is that our creative team gets to have a lot of fun, and that when we work with them, it depends. It's kind of each campaign is different. There's a lot of times when they come to us with really fun ideas for out of home specifically, that formats we weren't thinking of. So because we have such a good relationship with them, it's great to work with them and talk and strategize together, and they can inspire us to look at things that we didn't necessarily look at before, or even inspire us to push our partners beyond the typical traditional creative formats that we've worked on in the past. So it kind of all plays together in lots of different ways, but it's definitely an important piece of our full media strategy.
Great. That's what we like to hear. And when you think about competitive, how does that factor into your planning and considerations?
Yeah, so when we look at competitive, it's kind of twofold, because obviously we're looking at the vast breadth of formats that other competitors are buying. Say for a tentpole, like if it's a specific genre that we're looking at for a big blockbuster or a horror film or a more female-focused film, we look at the formats. We understand kind of what's working for a competitor maybe. But I would say the main thing that we look at with competitive, with out of home specifically, is the creative, and we like to push the boundaries, but also like to see where our competitors are pushing the boundaries, and it really inspires us, and our creative and everyone. What's really great about out of home too is kind of like, at least in Los Angeles, everyone's driving around, and everyone from our company sees it. So when they see a different advertiser up there on a bulletin doing something cool, so I can't tell you how many random emails I've gotten from random people in the company who've just said like, "Oh, I saw this on the way to work. This is really cool. Like, had you guys thought about this?" And it always kind of sparks a discussion, which is great. So we really love looking at our competitors. I think hopefully we've pushed the boundaries in a lot of ways and pushed people to do interesting and more dynamic creative executions. But we definitely are constantly looking at the competitive market and understanding not only the types of the way in which they're buying in the formats, but also just the ways they're pushing creative boundaries.
And do you have what are some of your favorite creative highlights from our campaigns from the last year?
To name a few, so on Missing Link, our creative team came to us and they really wanted to have, because Link was this big Yeti character, he was a Sasquatch and he had a hat that he was wearing, so they really wanted to do an arm that moved and took his hat off and put it back on and on a bulletin. So we worked really closely with the Horizon team and Atomic Props and Outfront, and worked with all the partners, kind of working together in the best way, and were able to execute what we wanted to do. And I think it looked great. That was really fun. And then we worked with the same companies on Addams Family because our team wanted to light up Fester's light bulb, when he has the light bulb in his mouth. So we were able to do a 3D light bulb execution on a bulletin. And then some of the things that Horizon's brought to us, which has been great, are the wind discs that we've utilized for the Hustle, where we did the whole title treatment as like gold wind discs. So they looked really great in execution and like just blowing in the wind on the bulletins. And I definitely saw a bunch of those around the city after we finished our campaign. But yeah, we've done a lot of really fun things. And then I think what's fun is that I really love the double-decker buses, because I feel like we've specifically creatively we're able to do a lot on those formats and kind of push boundaries we want to do of things that we haven't done, or things that creative has thought of. So for Addams Family, we did very like LA focused buses and then New York focused buses that were really cute. But I think with the use of digital formats has really helped us too, because our team can really kind of do whatever they want, and we always tell them that. And I think with the evolution of more formats becoming digital, like we haven't yet utilized the live boards in the subway in New York, but we talk about them all the time. And I've seen them in person several times, and I think it's just really important evolution of that format to have like and it's really impactful and really really, I don't know, impressive when you're down there and everything's moving together and all synced up, and it looks really great. So we're excited about that, to eventually utilize those this year. But yeah, so we've done a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, you have. Those are some of my favorites too. Obviously, like you're saying with the subway, among other things, consumer behavior and travel has changed significantly over the last month and a half. How do you see these changes in consumer behavior during this time affecting your strategy and considerations moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say, because we don't know. I think that's the biggest thing. Is personally, I think that we just don't know what's going to happen when things settle down in a different way and kind of quote unquote normalize. Because I think consumer behavior is probably going to shift, not going to go back to being the same. As a media strategist, I think it's just, and I constantly am kept awake thinking of consumer habits and behaviors, but I think it's interesting how, linear TV has had a renaissance in this time of people being home and having a lot of more free time to watch TV. I think I don't foresee impact on out of home in the sense of like a lasting thing. I think right now it's just fewer eyeballs seeing bulletins out in the world, and in the subways, obviously, but I would hope that when things are safer in the world, that people will. I mean, obviously, you can't really avoid the New York City subway when you're living there. There's not really alternate options, so I don't see that changing. But I do think it's definitely going to affect a lot of things. I think, especially just what media will be available for people to consume, regardless of, if it's on TV, if it's on digital, things that have changed. All the production of television and movies have kind of halted. So there's going to be a lot of rush back into that to make new content, and sports are such a big thing. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's really hard to say, but I have a lot of positivity and optimism that people will go back to some semblance of the life they had. And I do, from an advertiser perspective, it is interesting and sad. I mean, not sad, but it's a little bit uncertain with a lot of what I've seen in LA. At least what we've seen is that the kind of this pandemic has caused a huge fluctuation in everybody's marketing plans and their future plans for the whole year, and their all their budgets and everything. So that's what I'm curious to see too, how it shakes out with, for us as a smaller advertiser in the studio space. We're oftentimes trying to be really nimble and get in and sneak into specific placements that we normally wouldn't be able to get into. So this might affect certain long-term advertisers that have to release holds on perms or release specific units that they've had for a long time, which leaves opportunity for other people like us to get in. But that's obviously I don't want to be taking advantage of a negative situation for somebody else, but it's just kind of the fact of the time and the market right now. But yeah, I think, I don't know, but I hope that I hope that people do resume a lot of the habits that they had before, and I think they will. I mean, from what I've spoken to with people, I think a lot of humans we're social creatures, and we all I think miss the camaraderie of being out in the world. And I've talked to so many people that even just miss their commute to work, and they miss their I miss my
I
commute.
do.
Yeah, I miss just talking to my coworkers in the kitchen, about their weekend. They're just like casual conversation and that interaction you don't get. So I have to imagine that people will go back to some semblance of normalcy at some point in this year, hopefully.
Yes, I believe so too. And I think we all need to be optimistic about that. As you think about Q3 and Q4, and as concerns out of home, are there any changes you think that the industry could implement to maybe make it easier to plan, especially in light of what we've been through?
Yeah, and we've always kind of, it's hard because entertainment specifically, I mean, entertainment, as most people know, is a very, I'll say nimble category where we kind of we're shifting a lot. And obviously, we moved No Time to Die back to November, very late in our campaign, and we saw that happen across the board. You saw Mulan push back, and Black Widow, and a bunch of campaigns that were active, like Mulan, had already been pretty active in the market. So I think for us, the biggest, obviously, with out of home, there's limitations with cancellations and shifting and deadlines in general, which I understand is just kind of in the nature of what it is, because when we're pushing back or canceling a bulletin, and need someone to take that in, need someone to relieve us in a week, that person has to design and build new art and print a bulletin that takes days to print. There's just little things that we don't necessarily have any control over. So I think that's where I empathize and understand the challenges on the vendor side of their flexibility. They can only be so flexible with their terms because unless of course it's digital. But even in that sense, they have to resell everything. So it's just, I think it's hard to say. I think ideally we would have a little more flexibility on our terms and our shifting, just based on the world that we live in. And I know that we had to kind of push a lot of conversations forward when we shifted No Time to Die, and we kind of started the whole conversation with the entire industry. And then you saw not just entertainment, but travel and hospitality advertisers shifting, and other categories canceling plans. So I would have to imagine that on the vendor side, they're probably having a ton of discussion as this year progresses of what to do, and if there's a second wave of quarantine, hopefully, knock on wood. But I don't know, it's just really hard to say, and it's just. But I think I will say that everyone, I feel like, are, a lot of the partners we worked with seem to be, really good partners and understand, and everyone understands the challenges. It's just always, there's just challenges on other sides that we're not always privy to, and we're not always, able to control.
Right. Yeah, it'll be an ongoing conversation for sure.
Yeah.
You guys were one of the first studios to push back a film release when this started.
I know.
So,
we were lucky, I guess, in that sense. But it was definitely a challenge, obviously.
Yeah. And talking about being optimistic, we think about normal life coming back, and hopefully we're out of this lockdown phase. What are your thoughts on how the pandemic will affect movie-going behavior in the future?
So I'm going to speak out of my personal beliefs, but I think, there's two kind of extremes in my mind right now, two camps, where I think there's a good amount of humans that are pretty cautious about how they're going to dip their toes back into real life and, normal life and society and everything. So I do think that there might be hesitation, and I've just anecdotally from speaking to friends and family members, I've heard people say that that's the last place they want to go. They'd rather go to a restaurant first and then figure that out, and then go, to friends' houses, and then, and then a movie theater is, not a priority for them. But speaking as a frequent moviegoer myself, who loves going to the movie theater, I really miss that experience, and I do think like movie going has a different feeling. There's different emotions that I feel when I'm at a movie theater with people seeing a horror movie or a big action movie or a big, a Star Wars or something like that, or just any movie. I just enjoy the experience, and there's like a camaraderie in that. But and it's just a nice time to relax and get out of your life and your house and just sit in a movie theater that's quiet and dark. But I definitely think there's a lot of people that feel the same way that I do, and I feel like they're frustrated or antsy or itching just to get out of their homes. And I think I think we could see a big resurgence of people going to movies. I don't know. It's really, I think, too hard to say right now. Like, I think you can see in the news there's people who are frustrated across the country who want to go back to work and they want to go back to their lives, and so I think there could be a good story. I just don't know. I think, again, I have optimism that it might be good. I think, but I don't. I mean, I don't believe in the doom and gloom of this is gonna be the end of the theatrical experience at all. I don't think that's a thing in any way. I think this has definitely caused a shift in people's behavior, but not necessarily something that's permanent. I think people are just now, doing a lot of entertainment consumption at home more than they used to. But that doesn't mean that that's because they want to. It's because they have to. So.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's just really crazy, right? It's like so every day I feel like there's just a new piece of information, and there's new feelings that everyone has, and as we get more information, people feel better, or they feel worse, or they feel more scared, or they feel less scared, and it's hard to say.
It's a roller coaster. It's really minute to minute, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
My mood and my level of anxiety.
Yeah, and then like I think the news outlets obviously have a job to do, and they're getting as much information out as possible, and then we have to digest that in the way we can and
Right.
process everything. Um, it's just it's so uncertain, because it's like not something that we've ever lived through. So there's no rule book or manual to say, in 6 months we'll be fine and we'll all be happy and go back to normal. Like I just
Right.
I just want to not be afraid of being around people.
I agree. I agree.
You know, it's weird to be scared of humans walking around the street.
I know. It's so surreal. It's like living in a science fiction movie everywhere you go.
Hmm.
Well, okay, to end on a more positive note, are there any classic films or movies that you had been wanting to see but never got around to all these years, and then finally with this time at home you finally watched?
There's one, and I will say classic is quote unquote. I don't know if how it's because people it's not
Well,
super
it's
classic,
subjective.
but, I did recently just watch Notting Hill for the first time.
Oh, okay.
First scene. So I definitely think that's a classic in certain terms.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't seen that in years. I should rewatch that too.
yeah, it was cute. It was something
Yeah.
I had just skipped out on, I guess, and I'm a big rom-com fan, so.
Yeah, it's perfect for now too. A nice light, can
Mhm.
escape a little bit.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue is I've been trying to juggle, you know, things that are happy and uplifting with more serious dramas that I know I should be watching, but you know, it's just
Yeah,
everyone's coping in every way they can, and I don't
exactly.
think there's anything that anyone should be doing or watching, but I just thought it was a cute thing to do.
Yeah, need distractions.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Travis, thank you so much for your time. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in person
Yeah.
soon,
Hopefully.
hopefully.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you.